Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching this recorded interview tonight. I'm Sid Thompson with my fourth interview. And guess what? I'm sticking within the goalie union again tonight. But first of all, this little interview tonight is brought to you by Sid Sticks. Guess who? That's me. Why should you pay $350 for a full price stick when you can get it probably two or three for the price of one? Just check out Sid Stick. We'll see this. You'll scroll on the bottom banner throughout the broadcast. But tonight, I'm going to bring in this young man. Played his youth hockey at Roseau, moved on from sports peewees and bantams, then out of high school under the tutelage of Coach Bruce Olson. Amazing record there. He was All-State 99 and 2000, All-Conference 3 years, 98, 99, and 2000. Winner of the Frank Brimsick Award, which is for the most outstanding goalie in the state of Minnesota. And, of course, won a state title in his high school tenure there at Roseau for the Roseau Ramps in 1999. Then he moved on to the USHL for a brief stint there, played 7 games at Thunder Bay, and we'll talk about that. That was an interesting little stint there before the high school season started. And then from there, he had been tendered with Lincoln, playing there in Lincoln and finishing up his USHL days with the Sioux City Musketeers. After that, this young man moved on to the UND Fighting Sioux at that time, and I'm wearing my Fighting Sioux pullover tonight, honor of that. Now the Fighting Hawks, to be politically correct. Outstanding, I believe, was 59 plus or minus games he played there. 11th all time with 31 wins, a career GAA of 2.5, which is second behind Carl Gehring's all-time low of 2.23. That's amazing. 0.901 save percentage. That's third all-time as well. And a 702 save percentage, win percentage, fourth all-time. So pretty amazing stats. And not to mention after his tenure there playing between the pipes for the UND Sioux, he moved on to call 200 games for the UND Fighting now Hawks with Midco. I'm very pleased and proud to bring on tonight my guest, Jake Brandt. Jake, pleasure to have you, buddy.
Hey, Sid, great to be here. Anytime you get an opportunity to talk a little hockey with some Roseau guys, and especially Roseau hockey and some UND, hard to pass that up.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you, and like I said, great to talk. That the goal. I'm sticking within the goalie union. We're a little different, so it should be a fun one again tonight with some stories. So let's talk about where it all started. And you know what? I want to do some. I want to throw this up because when we talk about youth hockey in Roseau, it's all about this here. I got to do something for you here to get this going because I got a little something I think is kind of cool because I threw this on because it's all got to go all back where it started from. So there's a song all from Slapshot, and it's kind of in conjunction with this. So here we go. Listen to this. And thank you, Maxine Nightingale. We don't own the rights to that music, but I just had to throw that because this is where it all started, right? For a lot of us in Roseau, was in this building here. Now it's way renovated and pretty fancy now compared to back in the day. But can you talk about your youth hockey days? From Roseau as a squirt, and of course moving on to Pee Wee's playing for Dick Johnson, and then who are your squirt and your bantam coaches? By the way, I always ask that because everybody remembers Dick. And you have to excuse me. Was it David Winslow coaching squirts back in the day for you?
Yep, Dave Wensloff and Craig Baumgartner were our squirt coaches back in the day there. And
Okay.
then Bantams, we had Lou Erickson, Tom Murphy was helping as well, and I believe Bob Lund was helping a little bit as well too. So I think maybe Mike Baumgartner a little helping as well. So yeah, I obviously Dick Johnson, everyone knows him because he coached all of us, and
Of course.
kind of funny. I still look at people, and when we're eating or something, we all have our hats off and we're eating, and I'm like, "You still do that?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's Dick Johnson 101 there." So
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, we had a great childhood though. Grew up and played a lot of hockey. Not necessarily on just the North Rink. We had the dome back when I was playing, and we really utilized that dome a lot. We put that third sheet up because the North Rink at the time wasn't really that great of a rink, but we we skated there a lot, and we had to shovel the ice. I remember, you'd play shoot to scrape. If you go to after practice, you'd go down, and if you scored, you got to go off. If not, you grabbed a shovel and you started scraping. So those were the fun days, the cold days of there. But that's where we all kind of honed our skills, was just on that extra ice, and especially our 99 group just kind of utilized a lot of free extra ice.
I got to ask you because I joked with Paulie Broughton. I says, once or twice I had to scrape because I didn't stop that many. When you do this, did you have to scrape, Jake?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I scraped a few times, and again, usually it's at the end, and you got the big goalie pads on, and
Yeah.
after a wet practice and all that, and you're going down the middle, the hardest stretch, because they're doing the easy round ones while they're still shooting, so like they get it piled to the kind of the middle where they got to do something, and then you're in there trying to help them out shoveling. So yeah, of course I shoveled a little bit, but I'm
But
sure I
most of the time,
shoveled.
fun though, right? Most of the time,
Well, usually I didn't let in enough, or I let in enough to kind of have enough shooters, but not having to, or enough scrapers, but not having to scrape.
all right. Well, from those days, you got any good stories from the youth though? You can share with us that you'd like to bring up that we can talk about on the broadcast on this
Yeah,
recording?
well, I mean, obviously the squirt group, that we were a really good team. I mean, we took second place in that squirt invitational. We lost to Skokie, Illinois, and they were a little bit older of a group from us. So we were really good. We wanted that traveling trophy. So I mean, we were identified as a pretty good squad in a group from a young age in squirt. So had a great experience in that squirts, and then obviously Peewees. We went on and that had some good teams there, and was unable to win in Hermantown when we played the state tournament down there. They had this David Tanabe, he went from Pee-wees to high school. He was just a men against boys, and he played for White Bear Lake, and they were a really good team, and they nipped us. I think it was a 1-goal game kind of toward the end. Dean Bufflin almost tried to get into the ref room because I think we had tied it, or the whistle blew too soon, and they didn't count it. But that was a great experience. And then obviously, Bantams, we didn't win it either. So that was the hardest thing, is we were so close. Like we were closest as a squirt group, and we kind of got further and further away. And so when we got to high school, that was like our last kick at the can. And I know the stakes were high. The pressure was high on Coach Bruce Olson and us as a group. But really, once we got into high school there, and we kind of had a tough stretch on the road, we linked up, and it sounds cliche, but we never looked back. We just kind of went on a tear and never lost another game and won a state championship.
Speaking of that, I'm going to throw up a couple pictures here. First of all, here's the team picture. That group there, and you mentioned Coach Olson. We'll talk about him a little bit too. Rest in peace. He's a great guy and a great mentor, and pretty intense at times as well. But there's that squad there. You right in the middle. You look at that young man there, a couple guys next to you there, and then of course this one here is the best one. That team, best team picture right here with the title in front of you there. Look at everybody just smiling, just happier than you know what.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was at Target Center too. It wasn't at XL. That was because of the transition to the new arena that they were building. So it was over Minneapolis, the other side, the evil side, as I call it, of the river.
Yeah, it was. And so in '98, we actually, Phil Larson scored in overtime to knock off Edina, and they were the defending champs at that time. So we played in the St. Paul Civic Center, River Center at that time in '98. And then, yeah, '99 and in 2000, we played over at the Target Center. And so it was a unique and little smaller building. But I mean, I thought it was cool because, we were Roseau kid, and like you're in a big city, and we're in our, yellow school bus, and we're just rocking it with pride and pulling into the Target Center, where you actually drove into the building and you kind of got mesmerized. And it was a neat event, and certainly it treated us exceptionally well in '99. And just looking at that picture, a lot of great memories and little goosebumps of just excitement, and just how I think everyone forgets just how hard it is to win championships. It's just so tough. And even especially nowadays, it's just even harder. It just keeps getting tougher and tougher because everyone's getting deeper and has more skill. And it's just not easy to win any championship. So
And not
just
to
was
mention
very,
too, Jake, not to mention it's getting tougher and tougher. And let's be, open enrollment, whatever have you, got the privates. I mean, that's the controversy everybody's talking about, this and that. But we won't go there because the story. But it is so tough, and it's hard to believe that was what 25 years ago. Right now, it's May
yeah.
2020. It's like wow, time flies, doesn't it? So I've got a very grainy. I got some snippets from that tournament. I want to show you just what we were thinking when this, the final buzzer rang. So just please bear with me. It's very grainy, but let's see if we can put this up here for you. It's going to be an overlay over us here.
Primo, and it's 2-0 for Roseau. Well, the explosiveness of Roseau showing, and he's done a great job all season long. Here's an opportunity for Tate breaking in. Oh, it's no goal. No goal. Houston went to the net, and he was probably now from the other door, steps in close, plays it down low. Klima shoots, he scores! Well, a power play goal by Mike Klima, and you can see how fast he released it. Knocked off by Hastings, but not out. Dumped in right again, it's gone! Oh, yes, it is in! And Roseau goes up 4-0, and they are in command of the Double-A title. Erickson Schuma's long blast block, that will do it. From 1899, Double-A champions are the Roseau Rams. Primo, and
Oops. Does that bring? What is that? Watching that
Yeah.
again. I mean,
Yeah.
have you ever went back and watched any video from that tournament?
Yeah, we have. I have for sure. I actually wanted to watch it. It was funny because when I was coaching in Brainerd here, some of the kids were like, "We want to see what you look like when you were playing," like so. So I found some, and obviously the beginning of that game we didn't come out that great, so we kind of got outshot heavily early on in that, and quite frankly, I didn't play that well. Well, certainly not the opening game against Rochester Mayo. We had it in control, and I let in a couple bad goals and let him in the door, and Big O came down and scored a huge goal to just kind of take the wind out of Rochester May's sail. And then obviously Mike Klima had one heck of a state tournament as well. He just filled the net a lot with a lot of goals. But I finally just I played really well, obviously early on in that championship game, and made some big saves. And I think that's what good teams do. Like you just bail each other out. You live to fight days and momentum swings, and that's what we were able to do with that group. We just kind of weathered a storm there at the early push by Hastings, and then we were so good and so deep that our skill just kind of finally took that game over, and we just wore them down. Big, strong, heavy team, and they were more of an individual skilled team with a couple high level players there, and yeah, it was still the greatest memory and still the greatest hockey accomplishment of my life, really.
Yeah, pretty cool. Now, who was correct me if I'm wrong, but the goalie for Hastings that year, was that UTEC?
Ben Utek, yeah, who went on to be a
You know,
tight end for
won a Super Bowl. Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, when I did some state football, he was a color guy there when I was at the old dome. So that's why I
He,
brought that up. He was at the time, he's pretty large. So he's a tight end.
yeah, I want to say though, like they put him in later. I think Mitch Glines started that game for Hastings. But and Utech was the backup. If I'm not,
Lions there, or was that Ben Tharp? Because I think Lions was a Centennial guy, wasn't he, or Elk River guy? No,
he
it
might
doesn't
have
matter.
been. He might have
Might have
been.
been. So our memories. After 25
I
years,
know. Well, this is 25 years, like you say, too. So, yeah, I Glines are there. You're right on like a Eden Prairie goalie or something like that.
yeah, doesn't
Anywho,
matter. Bottom line is, Roseau came out victorious. And a story about that back in the day when I was a little bit, younger and a little bit more squirrely, so to speak. I remember we were at the pub. It was an Irish place, restaurant, pub next door. The night before, and I said, I don't know who it was, me and Bobcat or a bunch of Roseau guys. If Roseau wins the state tournament, just so you're aware, you better bring some extra staff in. Well, lo and behold, you guys won, and they didn't, and they were swamped. It was a absolute crazy. It was funny because I think some Hastings people went to the door and they were like, Roseau, they were cheering and they just turned around and immediately walked out. So it was
Yeah.
definitely a memorable night, Jake. It was something to remember.
Well, you know, the crazy thing is that like that night, like we didn't really know what was going on. Like we, you know, you don't have like these plans of anything. And then we had the Mr. Hockey banquet the next day because Derek Bufflin was going up for, you know, the Mr. Hockey. So we wanted to stay back as a team and be there with him and for him. And, you know, we wanted him to be a part of the celebration with us being escorted back into town and all that too. But our parents or someone had rented like a conference room at a floor level at a hotel nearby. And I remember walking in with the trophy with our team and that place just erupting. And you got Neil Broughton there and just all these alum. And it was just unbelievable. And I wish we would have had like cell phones back in the day on that, just when we came in with that trophy. It was crazy, and that was it. Just the night kept just giving you special memories, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. The one thing about that, you don't have a cell phone, you had it right here, Jake. It's right here
Yeah.
forever. It's a memory that you'll never forget. So that team, you had an amazing team, but I want to put up one person here. I want you to talk about Coach Olson. What can you tell me about Bruce as a coach and as a person and what he did for you guys as the head man?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bruce came into the year obviously, you know, with a lot to prove because you know we had struggled trying to get into the state tourney, getting through Warroad, you know, in '96, '97, just those tight 1 goal, 2 goal games that we just couldn't get by them, and then we went to Double A in '98, and obviously we got to state, got a win, which was good. But like this group was the only thing that was going to be classified as a successful season was winning it. So the pressure was astronomical, and I thought he handled it really well. You know, I was his office aide, Blair Comstock, and so we helped him like with FIAD and stuff. And so I had a lot of say of like, what do you want for practice? And so like, oh, you know, I want shots, but we need to work on these things. And like, he just did a really amazing job. And like I say, when we went on that first road trip, we just got ranked #1 in state. And, you know, that was pretty cool, right? Obviously, you're a kid, and we probably let it get to our heads a little bit and overlooked a Greenway Coleraden team that had a really good freshman player called Gino Geyer that he had a hat trick in like the first period. I think he might have even had 4 goals. I know he had 4 on the night, but he might have had them all in the first period. And so we ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw there in the snake pit. And then we had to turn around and go right down the road to Hibbing, which was no slouch of a team. They had Travis Weber, who went on to be a goalie for the Gophers, went to the National Development Team program. He won a title with the Gophers. That would have been in 02-03. My sophomore year, I believe, is when it was. And so we won in overtime on that game. And so there was a lot of question marks coming back. And for him to be kind of able to shut the outside noise off and the distractions and kind of rally us as a team and as a group and, you know, really lean on our leadership. We had great leaderships in our captains and our assistants on that team. And like I say, we had these links, and we, as silly as they were and as goofy as some people thought, and we got picked on in school a little bit with them, and because you always had to have them, you had to have it on you at all times, and if you didn't, you got caught without it, it was $1 fine. And so it was just something silly, and he picked it up at a like a summer hockey camp, I think he said, and just pulled that out at the right time. And like I said, so what does he mean? He means a lot. Obviously, he delivered a state title to a very historic hockey program that loves championships, and so he's part of that echelon of the coaching that have been able to do that, which not many have.
No, not at all, not at all. And you go back and you said you had some struggles, going against Ward and that. Can you talk? I mean, that's one thing I didn't talk about with Paul and Mike much. The Ward Roseau rivalry. It's not maybe as intense as it used to be per se, but when you guys played, obviously you had to go against each other until you moved up. Can you talk about that? I mean, I miss that. That going against the evil neighbor, so to speak.
Yeah.
They've had some wagons lately, obviously. But so is Roseau. So what do you think about that now that it's not going against each other in the section anymore? They're in A, and we're in double.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still special. You look at Hockey Day in Minnesota and
Yep,
how
yep.
good of a job that they did with that, right? And Roseau, you look at Roseau just again early exit this year and just a tough way to end the season, but beat Warroad, right? They beat them this year, and then Hockey Day Warroad beats them. So I think when you get the rivalry, it's still there because it's not like one team's just dominating now, and Warroad's got some good things going on right now, and I think Roseau though too. I know we got a lot of really good things kind of on the starting, on the base level really going on in Roseau, and I know Phil Larson, Mike Klima, and all the guys there that are helping out. Like they just got a lot of guys pulling on the rope in the right direction, kind of in the same direction again, and it's hard to win, so that's what you need. But I mean, the rivalry for me was always. It was awesome. I remember as a kid because they were big games and they were, I was at every one of those big games. And so they were still big games when I was there, in 98, 99 and 2000. And anytime you saw the TV trucks there and, the lines out, the pre-sale tickets, all that, it was a big deal. And those were really fun to be a part of. And I remember that 99 year when Warroad came to Roseau, we were up on them like 6-0 in that first period. And I remember Kerry Eads, he was like, that looks like a college hockey team out there tonight. We looked like 5 chairs out there, and they were doing whatever they wanted, so we were up for them, and they were really special. And I think they'll always continue to be special, even with the players now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another intense guy, Kerry Eads, there, former UND guy as well. So got to throw that in there. So you move on after high school, winning the title. Let's talk about that transition. You did before and after. I saw Thunder Bay in there. I'm like, well, what's the story with that? Can you talk about that? Because that was a before and after you mentioned to me. So how did that come into fruition there? Playing at
really what it was. I mean, after we won the state tournament there in '99, I had kind of planned on going to play junior hockey in Lincoln, and I had signed a tenure with them. And I was actually in Lincoln, and I was enrolled in school for a week out there. And I had to be back if I was going to come back to Roseau when school was like the first day of school. Otherwise, I was going to be ineligible. And so then I was like, I was ready to go, and then it just didn't really feel right. And I don't know. I think I wanted to graduate a Roseau Ram. I really did, and do it the right way. And I am so glad I did. But when I came back, then I was just a student, and I was going watching volleyball, football games on Friday nights. I'm just a typical high school student getting ready for winter sports, and we had some fall league stuff that we played in and that too. But I actually got a call after coronation night from Todd Jones, who was the head coach for the Thunder Bay Flyers, who was a goalie over at UND. And I think he called Dean Blaze and said, hey, I need a goalie. And Blaze probably said, call Jake and get him over there or something like that. But I went over, and I was driving over and catching the bus. So the first trip I did, I drove over. My mom and dad came with me. We drove over. We went to Duluth and caught the bus. And they were driving on a trip to Rochester, Sioux City, and then we're playing Twin City Vulcans, and then they were heading back to Thunder Bay. So I went on that with them, and my parents kind of followed along. And after, and then the cool thing was the Rochester game, Jesse Modal and Phil Larson were on the Rochester Mustang team. So that was pretty neat. And then I ended up playing 2 games that weekend, and it went really well. And they're like, we want you back. So I was driving. I was going to school Monday through Wednesday in Roseau, and then Thursday I was driving up to Thunder Bay to practice. And we didn't even have ice in Roseau at the time. So I was just getting a skate in Thursday for practice and playing Friday, Saturday, and coming home either Saturday after the games or Sunday. And I remember we played the Fargo Moorhead Ice Sharks when Derek Bufflin and Klima, and they had a lot of the Roseau guys on that team. And I remember Derek Bufflin scored on me in Thunder Bay from the point. But, it was fun playing against those guys. I think Mike Klima actually rode home with me that night. And that's how that little thing got on the radar. And then I loved it because I really liked Todd Jones and he was a goalie. And I was like, hey, I would come up here, for you next year. And he's like, we'll come after the year. And then they didn't have a good year. And then he said, Jake, we're gonna fold. So go over to where you were gonna go. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, you mentioned, I saw that. I saw Thunder Bay and Rochester. Those are two teams now that are no longer in USHL. Rochester has an NA3 team, I believe. But yeah, because Roscoe was coaching there. One of the Rosses, I don't know if it was Steve or Mike at the time as well. So from that point, you go back to juniors. But I want to mention one thing, the ice, you mentioned ice, you talk about coming back to graduating as a high school student in Roseau. I mean, you don't get those years back. So hearing that, Jake, you hear a lot of guys that won't, that leave, and they don't experience that. You don't get those years back. So you talking about that high school experience, going to football, going to volleyball, that's what high school is about. Those memories that last forever. I mean, granted, you get memories playing junior hockey, but you don't get that high school experience. I'm glad that you did that. So from there, then you move on to Lincoln. Um, was it 9 games you played there, and then from there you finished up with Sioux City? So what the transition from Lincoln to Sioux City? How did that happen? Let's talk about the two teams and finish up with Sioux
Yeah.
City.
Yeah. So we had 3 really good goalies at UN or at Lincoln, and it actually just kind of happened where they drafted and we had 3 really good goalies, and so it was just going to a spot where I was going to get more games, and that was at Sioux City. And actually, Brandon Polich, who is a friend of mine on that Lincoln team, came over on that trade with me to Sioux City, and then actually Jesse Modal he joined like that. I want to say like 4 or 5 days after I was there because they were looking for some more players, and we just kind of said, well, we know a guy from Roseau that's a good player that I think Jesse had either enrolled in school in college and missed hockey then and wanted to come play. So that's how he was at Sioux City too. So it was actually kind of fun. So yeah.
I got to play with the teammates, so yeah, not too bad either. 2.75 and 2.81. So anytime you're under 3 in the juniors in the USHL, it's pretty good. And 90% save percentage over 90. So that's a tough league. So from there, then comes UND. Let me ask you this. I asked Mike this, I asked Paul this too. So was there anybody else that you thought about going to, or was it always UND that you wanted to play at? I mean, did
I
anybody
always wanted
visit any other school?
Yeah, I always wanted to play at UND. I mean, that was when Dean Blaze is your 3rd grade gym teacher, and then you just watch him just win a state championship, go be a world junior coach, go right from high school to college. You're pretty tied with the guy or pay attention. And so obviously with him in the connections of Roseau, we could get some tickets to go over and watch all the time. And so I was dead set always on North Dakota. But in saying that, knowing it's a pretty remarkable program that you just don't get to go to. So I was actually going to be going on a visit to Wisconsin after my junior year. And no, I think my senior year. After my senior year, I was going to go on a visit to Wisconsin after the year, and I think Dean had heard about something of it, and he said, "Why don't you just come down Saturday and watch the game after your Friday game or something?" And I did, and that's when I had committed. He's like, "Well, if you wanted to play anywhere, if you could pick anywhere you'd want to play, where would you play?" And I just said, "Well, obviously I would always love to be a Sioux." And he goes, "Well, consider it done." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think I just committed to North Dakota." And we didn't have Twitter or, anyone interviewing, or it's just like, "Yeah, I'm committed to North Dakota." And it was like, "Oh, really? Is that true? Is he just saying this?" Or, so yeah, it was, and I know David Klima went down there with me.
Yeah, you got to play with a couple former high school teammates, and Klima and Lumbum and Fabian. It was those two were from Roseau that you played with there, right?
Yep. David Lumbum, and him and I roomed quite a bit on the road too. So it was Dave and I for a couple years there rooming together, and then Eric Fabian. So it I saw Fabes this weekend, and obviously he's on it was on the broadcast and stuff and all that with me. So, but yeah, Eric worked his butt off and really carved out himself a great career at UNB. And I remember our senior year, he was a big, huge component of the three-headed monster line that we put together. That was Brian Kennedy, James Mason, and Eric Fabian, and they caused teams fits, and he was a part of that. So it was a fun little kind of a run at the end.
So here's there you are, right? That's you, if I recall, right? Is that gentleman there?
Yeah,
In the bottom. You know what I like most about that picture, though, Jake? Look at the stick in your hand.
What do you like about the stick?
It's an old Christian.
That's right. It's old school.
You don't see those too much anymore.
No, then, you don't. No.
How about this picture here? Talk about this.
Yeah, that was a special one. Yeah, that was a really special picture. It's kind of a funny story. I think they screwed up. So they have a picture of that at Texas Roadhouse in Grand Forks in the bar area. And I think they thought it was Zach Parisi holding the cup for a sec, because it's like, why would they put me up there at Texas Roadhouse? But it's definitely me. And there's a goalie up there too with Carl Gehring. So I don't know what they did, but that was a special year for me, just because I played some really good hockey down the stretch. We were kind of trailing going into Minnesota Duluth with 2 weekends to go. The cup was in the building because Minnesota Duluth, if they swept us, would clinch the cup. And we went in there. We won Friday night. David Lumbum and I were roommates. We missed the team meeting for the next morning. And this is right down the stretch when sections is going off in high school. So the doors were locked. We're running through Skyways, trying to find where this meeting is, because it was always a Saturday walk and shake with Pullman, our athletic trainer. We'd have a Gatorade like shake, get you out of bed, kind of go walk and stretch, so you just weren't laying around. Well, David and I were eating lunch or breakfast with our parents up in the Radisson, that spinning restaurant in Duluth there. And we went down, and Dean Blaze time was like, if 10 o'clock was the meeting, 9:45 the bus was already gone. It was like it was early, and so we were down plenty early, kind of looking around, couldn't find anyone, and we ended up missing the meeting. And they said, "You're not going to play." And I remember saying, "David, you're going in and you're doing all the talking." And he's like, "Yep, I got this. And he was an assistant captain. And so we went in, and there's Dean Blaze, Brad Berry, Dave Haxtell, 2 chairs. And I'm like, oh boy, that's not intimidating. And so Dave is like, "Coach, here's what happened, blah, blah, please. And he's like, "Nope, you missed team meeting, you don't play. Nope, end this discussion. Come on, coach, please. And Dean, and we were like, Dave was out of options of what to say or beg, I think. And he had made one comment like, "You miss the team, boss, you don't play." And I said, "Baloney. Andy Kohler missed the bus my freshman year, and he drove his car to Alexandria, and he caught the bus, and he played in Mankato. So don't give me that." And there was it was a heated moment. And I was hot, and I looked at Dave and I said, "We will be playing, and we will win tonight." And we did win. And so that picture really special, just because of a little bit of the dynamics that were behind the scenes late in that season.
Well, those 3 guys, those 3 coaches, Blaze, Barry, and Haxtell look pretty intimidating. I would be a little intimidated as a young man. Like
for sure. Dave Axtell, really intimidating. Brad Berry, nicest guy alive. So kind of like, "Come on, Brad, like, give us a hug here. Like, can you help us out?" Type of a thing. But, Blaze had a way of just knowing how to push buttons and get the most out of you. And I think that was a little bit of a thing that he saw an opportunity to kind of create another fire and a spark under our team, and took advantage of it, utilized it. He brought it up to right into pregame meal. We had to leave pregame meal because it was a team vote, and we played the game. But that was kind of a fun little memory.
So it sounds like Blazer had a little today's NHL coach who got suspended, a little Tortorella in him, maybe kind of Tortorella like.
he wasn't Torts, because Torts is crazy and says crazy things, and he just had hunches that seemed crazy but always worked. That's what I was just always admired of Dean Blaze. Like he could pull a goalie with 8 minutes in a national championship game, and it would work. He just he's just got a little magic in him, of his instincts or his
So you're
instincts.
saying that. So you're saying that Patrick Waugh learned that from Dean Blaze, because Patrick
I'm
Waugh was known to pull it.
Well, I think so. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I remember him doing that a couple times, seeing that. Anytime you pull a goalie that early, you got have a lot of confidence, or really put the
Well,
fire in your
how about the
players.
Wild pulling the goalie here in
Yeah, yeah.
overtime? And like, I wonder if they knew that they would have lost that 1 point, because it would be a forfeiture if they score the empty netter, or not. But
Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
Every now and then you got to take a chance, and in that case, it worked. But last few games have been kind of tough for the Wild, so I don't know what's going to happen for them. But so, you go from playing there, you finished up, and like I say, looking at those stats, Jake. I mean, you look back. I mean, those are some pretty damn stats to be pretty proud of. I mean, when you look at the guys that played goaltender at UND are part of that. 11 all time, and the goals against. I mean, 2.5 behind Gary, and Gary. I mean, Carl at 2.323. I mean, I can't believe he, as small as he was when he played, and to have 2.23 goals against. I still remember that state tournament when they played, watching that game. I don't know how many overtimes it was when he was at Apple Valley. It was nuts. But so what after going, did you have any thoughts of trying to move on to play minors or any contracts? I mean, because we always want to keep playing. The room. We miss the room. We love the room. I mean, the guys, the camaraderie. So what after UND? Where'd that go?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so what happened is my senior year, I had started one game, so we played. I started against Jimmy Howard out in Alfond Arena, Maine, and Maine was ranked #1 in the country. Obviously, Jimmy Howard was a pretty good goaltender for the Detroit Red Wings for a handful of years there. And so I loved Alfond Arena. It was a ruckus building. It was awesome. I let the first shot of the game in, and the crowd's all yelling, "Senior backup," and you're just kind of like trying to play in off of that, or use it as a little bit of some momentum, or some, kind of get you a little bit dialed in. And actually, we won the game. That was the only goal I had let in, and then I didn't start any. Broke my collarbone over Christmas, and then after that, we kind of went through a little bit of a tough little stretch down the second half, and then we were playing pretty good hockey. Well, I knew I wasn't going to play at that time, so it was like, hey, I have to be the best teammate, or else feel sorry for myself. So it was like, let's just be a good teammate. Let's take advantage of this. And I was taking 24 credits and doing a 64-hour internship my last semester, so I could graduate in the 4 years. So it was a very, very busy, last semester of college for me. So it was like, just focus on your school, get that done, graduate, and then I was honestly ready to be done. Like, I have zero regrets even to this day. I tell all the kids that I coach, like, play as long as you have that fire in your belly. And then, like, when it's gone, you hope, when that is, that it's time to step away. And it was. And honestly, I thought about it a little bit. You miss the early, when August and September rolls around and people are training and leaving and doing that, you miss that. So I had thought about it a little bit, but never really did, and went into grad school, and then got right into insurance, literally right out of college.
Okay. And from that, you've been very successful. I mean, what better advertising?
I got lucky.
Right? I mean, hey, Jake from State Farm.
I got lucky with that.
You got lucky with that, huh?
That ad came out like probably 6 months after my office opened in Brainerd, Minnesota here. And I was just like, wow, some people were like, oh, that must be so annoying. And I was like, this is going to be so good for business. I hope that, so yeah, it's kind of funny. And I get asked what I'm wearing quite a bit. you got your khakis on, all those fun stuff. And so
Jake from State
I
Farm,
play
man,
it
that was
up though.
cool.
I have the Jake from State Farm shirts and the hats, and it's like, you know what, we
Well,
might
and
as well
as
have
you
fun.
should, your name's Jake. So
Yeah, right.
that's like
So
perfect,
yeah.
perfect for you. That's like they're doing free advertising. You don't even have to pay for it. So, how many years? Okay, so let's talk about this. From that, you've been doing insurance, and then you did this. You moved into this here. How did that
Yeah.
transition happen? I mean, going from insurance, and getting back into the game, but as a color guy. How did that happen, Jake? Let's talk about that transition because you're not playing the game, but you're back in the game. Kind of like what I'm talking to you. This is what keeps me young. This is what I enjoy talking to players, doing
Mhm.
sports and coaching and such. How did you get back into that? How did that come about with Midco?
Yeah. Yeah. So really it happened quickly. Scott Kolberinsky was the one who was doing the color commentating, and he lived in East Grand Forks. He's a 1987 national champion, great guy, athletic director over at East Grand Forks. And so Tyler Palmasino was a teammate of mine, great player for East Grand Forks. He's coached their high school, won a handful of state championships. He had stepped down, and they didn't get anyone, or they didn't have an applicant they felt that they wanted to hire to either be the high school coach. So Scott Kolberinsky said, I'm going to coach for 1 year until we figure something out. And he was unable at that point then to work with college athletes because of
Because of the
NCAA
conflict of
violations,
interest, conflict there.
all
Yeah.
that. That's back when you couldn't even give them a quarter for a coffee if they were a quarter short. Now
Yeah,
you
just
can give
just
them a
ask Doug Woog
limousine.
back in the day when he gave
Yeah,
whoever McAlpine $100, right?
right. So anyways, that it just, I don't know. It was, I got like all these calls one day, and I'm like, Brad Barry's name pops up, Dan Hammer, and all these 701 numbers are calling my cell phone. And I was in the middle of a meeting, and I'm like, we're getting our Sioux name back. I'm like, what? Yeah, here we go. Something's brewing in North Dakota. So I get out of my meeting, and I'm just like so excited to see what's going on, and nothing. So I'm like, I call, and I'm like, hey, Brad. Hey, Jake, how's it going? Hey, have you heard from Dan Hammer? And I'm like, no, I had a bunch of missed calls, and what's up? And I'm like, we getting our name back, or what's going on? He's like, no, you want to do the color commentating for UND? And I'm like, oh, here, I thought it was like something like so awesome, like for our nickname and that. But so I was still coaching Brainerd's Bantam Double A team. So I was like, I had coached that for a handful of years. So I was geared up to coach the high school, or not the high school, but the Brainerd Bantam Double A team. So I was like, the first year I was doing a lot of traveling. I was coaching Friday afternoon games. I was driving to Grand Forks to work games. I was leaving to go get to towns to coach Saturday games, to then go to do the UND games, to then do Sunday games. And so there was a lot, but I had a great coaching staff. I mean, two guys that were both Division I athletes. So I had great coaching staff with me for that I was able to miss a little bit of that. And then honestly, I had quit with the UND, or I had quit youth coaching, and just kind of was going to focus more on that TV side of stuff, just because it was hard to manage both. And first year it went pretty well. I wouldn't say I was great on TV, but they won a national title. So when you win, everything is good. So I got to come back for year two, and Dan Hammer had stepped down. So I brought in this new guy named Alex Heinert, did a little bit of chatting with him. Say, hey, Alex, where you from? Hockey player. Nope. Grew up in South Dakota on a farm ranch. He did he was an athlete. He did, like some cross country track. He's an athletic guy, but didn't know hockey. And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, have you called a lot of hockey or anything? And he was just like, I've done a handful of some games and things. And I'm like, well, this is a big fan base. And well, those of you that know Alex Heinert, obviously he's a national broadcaster now on CBS Sports. Just got done doing the Frozen Face Off with Dave Starman Friday and Saturday down at the XL Energy Center. So I got to work with the best, and I enjoyed it because it got me back to UND. It got me back engaged into the program. And it's not like you get disengaged in the program. You just get so busy doing other things that it's so hard to get back there, to lots of people are getting married, having kids, raising babies. Then when they're not babies, now they're gallivanting with sporting events and they're running. And so it's so hard to get back there. And this allowed me to get back there every weekend. And you're reminded of how special of a place it is. And it's a special place. Like I'm kind of an emotional guy that, like, I really love my things or my people, and I really love Roseau. I feel like it's helped shape me. It's helped define me. It's helped me in my career because of Roseau being just Roseau. Everyone knows Roseau. Everyone loves Roseau. So it's just been a good fit. And then obviously North Dakota, very similar culture, just very, very loyal, deep fan base, very supportive, very successful. And so I just have been a part of two amazing programs that just have taught you to kind of just the right way to do things, to just kind of where that standard is and how to be better, and just really how to work and the value of working for things, what you want to accomplish. So just, it got me back there, and I love North Dakota. I always
It goes back to that song that I put on when we showed the North Rick. Same thing, right back where you
I
started.
couldn't hear that song, Sid, so I don't know if the listeners aren't going to hear it because I couldn't pick it
crud.
up.
Well, it's just remember Slapshot.
Okay.
Right back where you started from. That's what she sings. There's a song in there, and that's exactly what it is. You're right back. You went back to where you started. Being a fighting hawk. Now it's always a Sioux, as I see. But that Heinart reminds me a lot of a guy I worked with, Nick Walsh. He's a basketball guy, and he's actually done St. Thomas, games for KSTP and that. Phenomenal. I mean, these guys like Alex, once they get ingrained in it and understand it, he's phenomenal. So it was a pleasure, I'm sure, to work with him. And on that note, I want to show something because I don't want to go too much long. I try to keep it on an hour because we don't lose the people's interest. But I want to throw something up because you talked about being emotional. 200 games, and I want to put something up, and I want you to talk about it when we're done. Okay, please?
Yep.
That's about a minute.
Jake Brandt, buddy, on behalf of all of us, job well done, and thank you.
I just got to thank everyone. I thank everyone at Midco. Alex, pleasure to work with you. Everyone at Midco, so professional. I've always said the fan base, I love the fan base, because if we didn't have the passionate fan base at North Dakota, this probably doesn't exist. Midco puts everything into it. That's why it's such a professional broadcast. I've been just lucky to be with a bunch of professionals. And Alex, I've been just really impressed. And again, like family, like friend, impressed of watching you just rise to stardom, and again, helping me become better. And again, Midco, just thanks to everyone, UND and the fans. It's been a pleasure. It's been a blast, and I'm going to miss it.
The pleasure's been ours. And Jake's going to be back a lot, of course, as a fan in the stands in his season tickets with his niece and his nephew and the rest of his family enjoying this. And you said that we're professionals, you are as well. And you've elevated your game and have made our coverage what it has been over these last 9 years.
So, about emotions, how was it that last broadcast to sign off with Alex? I mean, for 9 years, you said 200 games doing, UND hockey. Obviously, you have other adventures. You want to increase the business. Take more time in that. But how was that? I saw that face, and I'm like, I know Jake. I remember you were at the Hall of Fame when Buffy was introduced, right? You did Buff, and
Yeah.
a lot of emotions there too. So, how was that? Can you talk about that night?
Yeah. I was surprised I was able to hold it in like I was. It was really weird because, like, that night there was. And again, I didn't want anything to be about me because it was never about me. It was just all about the program. And so this is about North Dakota this year. You know what I mean? So it was like, I don't want anything of like that. But I think I was, of course, very professional. Alex is in Midco. They are. And Brad Berry, super guy. And super professional, and they know like UND and the culture and what it means to me, you know. So I think it was just I'm at that spot where I'm ready to just be done with it. So I think that's why it was like I'm ready for it. And even the senior year this year didn't hit me like it usually does most weekends. And I think this team, I still have a lot of belief in this team. I think they have an opportunity to do something special, and that's when I'll let it out. I'm hoping as when they do something special. But
the tournament this weekend, that's for bragging rights, right? When it counts is being able to vie for a national championship. So they still have that opportunity. So
yeah, they're still alive. Yep.
Exactly. So I'm going to kind of wind it down here, Jake. We went for almost 50 minutes here, but I wanted to throw that out there because, by the way, very dapper. You're looking very good in the broadcast.
I like clothes. I love clothes, and that was the thing. They had everyone kind of, and again, it didn't want it like it was just Jake. This is who I am. I'm loud and am what I am, and not everyone likes that, but it's just who I am. And so it's not. That was all that type of those things are. But like what I loved about that, the end of it, he said, so you can come to these games with your niece and your nephew, and that is an important part of where I am in life now of watching my niece and nephew who are in Roseau, you know, playing, and Brooks a goalie, trying to get Brody, my little nephew, to be a goaltender as well. And so I want to go to those games. I want to be a fan. I want to, you know, go there with friends and family. And then when I'm not, like this weekend, I was down watching Brooke play in the Super Series, and just want to hang out with family while we still are all healthy and we still can do all that stuff. So
I'm going to wind it down here with a couple questions and kind of a free form. And first of all, any regrets?
No, zero.
Zero. That's awesome. I asked everybody I talked to Mike Lee, I talked to Paulie Broughton and Don Ross. And one of the things I asked him is, if you have a young athlete, not just hockey, but let's use hockey as the main one because that's what we're talking here. Say a goalie, come up to Jake Brandt and say, Mr. Brandt, what advice could you give me playing the game of hockey, or as just in general? What would you tell that young person, that young man or young woman?
Well, I mean, when they're young, you know, you want it to be fun, right? So you just got to make sure, is it something they want to do, or is this something you're forced to do, right? So my biggest thing is you got to have fun, and you have to understand that you have to put work in. Like, and when they get older, I always tell kids there's two things every time you go on the ice. You're either getting exposure or you're being exposed. Two things are going to happen every single time you step on the ice, and that is in your control. So do you want exposure or do you want to be exposed? And those are the things that, you know, I try, and those are things that are choices. And same with work effort and work. That's a choice. And when the other things, you know, you maybe not as much of a choice, right? Do you have the speed of someone or the hand-eye or the hands? But you know, when skill doesn't work, hard work can outwork skill and win. And I think that's the biggest thing is I always say you got to be a warrior. You know, you just got to be able to work. And I think that's the biggest secret to just not only sports, but in life too.
Yep, you got to be able to want and have that go get it attitude. So I'm curious. I'm sorry, I'm asking one more question, but I asked Mike this, and I have to ask you this too. The health wise, I know we've all went. Well, I've got 2 new hips. I know Mike's going to probably have some. The style that these goalies play now. I mean, it's so much the RVH, the up down. Yourself, you know, the butterfly a little bit. But what are the thoughts on that? I don't know. How's your health? I mean, how are your hips and that? I mean, it's really a difficult position to play when physical. So, what are your thoughts on the style, the way these games, the goaltenders now? I mean, they're so good, but yet it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary how good they are. They have to be because these players are so good, and they can, if they get time and space, you know, they can pick a little tiny corner. So like health for me, I was, you know, pretty lucky to just get through without knee issues, hip issues. To be honest, I lost a couple teeth, so I had a couple implants have to be put in, but I did all that stuff after. I was done playing. It was old man hockey. I'm playing out, and I try race and get a puck to beat the goalie, and his stick knocks out 2 teeth of mine. I went to the Roseau old timer tourney and put the pads on, thinking it was going to be smart, and I about tore my ACL or MCL, and I said that's enough of that. So I don't put the pads on anymore. If I play, I'll play out, and that's
Smart man.
way
Smart
more
man.
enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, right now, I just like me. I live vicariously through others and through these young goaltenders now that I try to help out. So, well, Jake, it's been an absolute slice. I could continue talking with you for.
I know I could do
longer.
Sid. I love Roseau hockey, and obviously, just hockey in general. And I think that's what just makes Roseau so special, though it really
Yep.
does.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the camaraderie. That's one thing about hockey that I think is different than any other sport. The room. I mean, I can remember things, and I didn't play high level. Right, I didn't want to stay tall. I didn't want this, but I've got memories playing pee-wees with the Rosses or whoever. Just pops in my head. Those memories are there forever. Those friendships are there forever, and that's what I think is beautiful about the sport of hockey. That the camaraderie, and this is a way for me to stay with it. And who knows, Jake? Maybe we could come up with a little pod together, a couple goalies that like to talk, huh?
There you
Maybe
go.
come
There
up
you
with
go.
something there, huh?
Right?
Sid the Sib and Jake the Snake.
Yeah, right.
So,
Oh
but
yeah, no, it'd be fun. That'd be fun.
you know, but I know I'm going to let you go. I know it's Sunday night late here. I appreciate. I'm going to take and render this, and I'll put it up tonight so
Yeah.
people will watch. And I really thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's great getting caught up with you, and then best of luck with the adventure there. The expansion of the business. Maybe you'll have to convert over to your agency instead of my daughter. No, I won't do that.
You better stay where you're at.
Yeah, I'm in State Farm though. So thank you so much, Jake. It's been a pleasure. Have a great night.
Thanks a lot, Sid. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Go Rams.